So we're back following up from yesterday. If you saw the firewall video, this was the cardboard template when it was in the vehicle. These were folded up at whatever, 25-30 degrees each. And that was a three-dimensional shape. Now it's one-dimensional. It's nice as a flat. It has the extra material built into it because we taped it together as a three-dimensional item. So when it unfolded, you might be able to tell, you know, we got a little bit of a gap here, a little gap over here. That's the extra material we need for excuse me, that becomes the extra material we need to fill the gap when we bend it. You know, when it sat there tight as two pieces, it's fine, but when it's flat, it stretches as we bend it. So that takes up these gaps, will take up that stretch and still give us an accurate part in the end. So it's taped down, can't move. Now, just real simple. We're just going to transfer the shape of the template. I had to fill some of the gaps with tape instead of chasing my tail with adding a million pieces of cardboard. You know, it's a small 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch gap. You can get away with just adding a little bit of tape. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this video because I already have other videos that go into great detail on how to do all this. I am just going to give you guys like a give you a little quick bit of info. So I'm tracing this out with a Sharpie, which obviously is a fairly wide line. You put it on the mat, when you put it on the still, which is fine with me. I prefer to have that, so I will cut on the outside of the Sharpie mark, and that's because I prefer to cut on this side of the line and leave myself just a little bit of fudge room just in case. It's a lot easier to grind back a little bit of extra material than it is to add more material to it afterwards. If you remember in the other video, I want to put a couple returns in some of these flat spots, and that'll help strengthen everything up. Don't throw this away. I may mess this up. I may need to cut another piece of material. So I'll put that someplace safe, and just in case. Hope not, but because this is not that critical. You know, this is a fairly crude piece of metal shaping I'm getting ready to do with tights or with loose sloppy tolerances, just to keep it real. So you'll see here So on the inside of the Sharpie, on both sides, is where I'm going to line this up in the break when it's all done. And that's where I will do the bend at, because it'll stretch outwards. I mean, I put this marker in here, it's kind of exaggerated so you could see it, but you know, this section will stretch. So inside this line and inside of this line is actually a somewhat tight tolerance because that was our centerpiece that we started off with, and then we added these. So if we want any slop anywhere, we want it to move outwards, so that once this is bent and in place, if these edges go past the edge that they're going to butt up to or lay on top of, we can tack it from the back side, take a grinder, grind that back, and then they'll be nice. It'll be a nice corner all the way around. So that's just how I do it. There may be other ways to do it, but I prefer, like on this panel, I prefer these two sections to be the ones that grow and go outwards. It'll be easier to fix. So this one I do want to be accurate as possible. These two, still want everything to be as accurate as possible, but I'm okay with a little bit of mistake and rework on these outside ones. Alright, so gone through, added my tabs, laid out my break marks, did my layout for my bead rolling. I'm just going to recess these to give the panel some strength so it stays nice and flat. I'll hit it with like a 45-degree step die, and this inside piece will recess back. I think maybe like a 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. I can't remember what the die does. Won't be much. And that'll give it rigidity vertically and horizontally. You know, it'll be a 3-dimensional panel once we break it, but then we're going to give each individual panel a 3rd dimension just to give it a little more rigidity. So I've laid all that out here, followed the shape pretty close. So I am a little bit concerned about breaking this after these are inset. I've never done it this close before, so I don't know. I may be remaking this panel, but I'm gonna give it a shot. In the meantime, I want to cut it, get rid of all this, and make this as light as possible so that when it's on the bead roller, I can make it, I can manipulate it easier. Lighter the panel, the easier it is to manipulate. This isn't a huge panel, but for bead rolling, it is a decent sized panel. So anything that comes off here weight wise helps. I do have a shear for the bead roller that I could cut all of this off with as well. That's kind of a big panel, and I really don't like that shear. You really can't do tedious stuff and get in real tight nooks and crannies. So I'm going to use my electric nibbler. I have another video that I need to edit and upload. Explains how this works, but basically it's a punch, and it just punches out a bunch of circles or a bunch of crescent shapes to cut the material. As that die moves back and forth. So that's what I'm going to do here. Trim that out and get a pretty good rough cut on it, and then we'll start doing some bead rolling. Hopefully I remember how. It's been 6 or 7 years since I've done any. So you see, it's an effective tool, even though that's I fast forwarded that and it ends up being like 13, 14 seconds. It actually took me like 6.5 minutes to cut this out. So fast and effective, not by any means perfect, but it's an awesome tool to get you really close. And I'm happy with everything. You know, I'm 1/8 to 1/4 inch away from the line everywhere, well within grinder range. Once I get to fitting this up, like I said, it's going to change shape, and if it grows, I want it to grow outwards, and some of this is getting ground back and whatever anyways. So kind of dreading this because it's been a handful of years at least since I've bead rolled anything. But let's bead roll these panels next. So I checked the profile earlier with a scrap piece, and the way that you do that is you loosen the jaws with this handle until you can slide your material in there, just like we have now. And the more times you crank this counterclockwise, the deeper that profile is going to be. So I know from this position right now that I want to go 6 turns. I want to go 6 turns counterclockwise to get the profile that I want. This is a reversible bead roller. It's nice because you can, you know, go forward or backwards, or I guess you can go either direction, just depending on where you're standing dictates forward or backwards, right? So what we're going to do, some people line it up in the center of the die, or the outside, or the inside or the outside. However you want to lay it out, however you want to lay it out. I've laid this out so that my line will trace, or I'll trace the line, follow the line with the inside of the roll. So I'm going to get this in position, and I want the material so we're going to start off here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My point of reference is just, I guess that would be 9 o'clock. You can make it 12, 3, 6, whatever you want. But that's just my point of reference. It would be nice if I had a table, but I don't. That would help support some of the weight. This is a decently sized panel. Not in a hurry. It's going to form. Moving faster or slower doesn't matter. The pressure's on the dies. And what I'm after right now is just consistency and control. You know, this radius is going to be this is a pretty tight radius. I'm just barely. Alright, so firewall. I'll skip some places or steps because I just get in the zone and keep it moving. I also was battling with some disappointment. I'm rusty at bead rolling and it shows in this panel. So I went ahead and bent it anyways on the brake, excuse me, to make sure that it fit, and then I was going to make another one because honestly, heaven forbid, you know, my ego, my pride kind of got the better of me, and heaven forbid YouTube see me do something that's not perfect, or social media see me do something that's not perfect, because everything's supposed to always be perfect. And it's Sunday morning, and I came out here, or I got up this morning rather, with the intention of, you know, remaking this panel and doing the video and basically lying to you guys as if, you know, I was going to edit it in such a way that you didn't know that I'd failed, but I didn't really fail. I definitely need some more practice. I know that I'm better at bead rolling than what this panel represents, and I definitely need some more practice, and there's some things I could have laid out a little bit better, but it's not a failure, it's a lesson, and really it's nothing to be ashamed of. And I've gone into this thing with the intention of, it's a race car, it's not a show car, and that I need to do stuff in a timely manner. In the 2 or 3 hours it would have taken me to lay that out and redo it, and all that stuff could be used on other stuff. So I just had to put my ego and my pride aside and realize it's still going to function perfectly fine, even though it's a little bit ugly. The bead rolling portion is a little bit ugly, but listen, it's an ugly ass race car, and it's probably at some point, you know, you hate to say it, but you got to be honest, at some point I'm probably going to wreck this thing or upgrade it and take all that out anyways. So at some point there'll be you know, good or bad, or whatever life gives me, there'll be an opportunity to do better the next time. So that's what I'm going to do. Structurally, this thing's perfectly fine. The lessons that I learned was for that particular die, I forgot that you can't have such a tight radius. I really should have put like a 2-inch radius or 1.5-inch radius in there instead of a 1 inch, but I did want it small and tight, and that I need a table. That was it's a decent sized panel, it's pretty heavy, and my arms got tired. I was already out of practice, and so my lines aren't perfectly straight. So I don't consider it a failure. It's just a reminder that I need to practice more to get my skill level back up, and that if I'm going to do big still panels like that, I need to buy the table to help support the weight, because I'm not young anymore, and holding that weight up does affect me, as opposed to how it would have, you know, a handful of years ago. So we're just going to roll with it. I started tacking it in, and these are sometimes it's some of the creative stuff you got to do, you know, to pull the panel over when you're by yourself and you don't have anybody to come push it over so you can tack it. So I got a couple of ratchet straps. Well, these aren't ratchet straps, these are the quick release draw straps, and a piece of tube, and I'll just pull a section over, tack it, and move on down the line. You know, it's worked really well here. As you can tell, just like I spoke about previously, I've got my growth here, but that's fine. I can weld this from the back side. From the inside of the vehicle, I'll weld this whole thing, and then I'll come back through with the grinder and just grind this all flat. And by welding it on the back side, I should end up with a good amount of meat back there, so that when I do grind it flat, I shouldn't have pinholes or too many pinholes that I need to fix later. Inevitably there will be some, but also I gotta go get a smaller wire diameter. I don't know why I didn't think of that earlier, but somebody in the comments reminded me of that fact, and I've been trying to weld this with 035 and definitely too big. It's good enough to tack it, but I'm gonna have to go get some 025 so that I can finish welding all this stuff. And my brain's just a little rusty, I suppose, and I'm forgetting a few things, but I'll keep tacking. Gotta cut this section and fold it over and then make a little jog over panel, and then I can set the bolt the transmission to the motor, set them in, see if there's any trimming required in that area before I make the trans tunnel. But fairly decent progress this weekend. Alright, so got the firewall welded in. Got a few pinholes and stuff I gotta touch up and some grinding, but for the most part that's done. It's in. It's been a little bit of a frustrating process, you know. Moving this motor back has cost me 2 weekends and 1 work week worth of progress. Well, work week evenings worth of progress. And while the benefits well outweigh the time spent, I just want to race, damn it. So I'm a little frustrated. I just didn't decide to do this earlier. You know, I was trying to stay within all the firewall rules, and then in 2022 everybody all the no prep guys decided to be smart and get rid of all these stupid ass rules. So thank God that no prep promoters have come around, and hopefully they stay that way in the future. So next is the trans tunnel, and then I got to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with these pedals. Obviously now I have brake and gas pedal issues, but I don't think that'll be that big a deal to move over and retrofit. I think I'll do a floor mounted gas pedal maybe. But that wraps it up for this weekend. All that's done so that can sit back farther, and so those can fit better. This one I'm going to have to bead on a little bit just to increase that gap, and I'm going to have to figure something out about that last bolt hole. Right now I'm probably thinking I'm going to drill a hole in that well and put an access cover. But outside of the time setback, I am happy that I did this. It's almost 10 o'clock Sunday, and I'm just tired and a little whiny. Burning the candle at both ends with a day job and doing social media stuff and trying to get this done has got me in a spot where I'm wore down. I might just have to take a couple evenings off this week and get some R&R. So we'll see. Anyhow, thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you think in the comments below. We'll see you next time.